So welcome, we are done with our GS paper and we'll start with our CSET paper. So let's begin with the set of first 20 questions. Now here the first question, the first 5 set of questions is interesting. Now this question says that X receives 3 coins of different denomination 1, 2, 5, 10 and 20. Now what if the total amount received by X is M? Does X receive a coin of denomination 5? Now this is a very interesting question. We'll find all the combinations where we have three coins taken of different denomination into account, and we'll see what all combinations are possible. So what we'll do is we'll take a first case where we have 5 included in the series of 3 combinations. In the second case we would take where we don't have 5 as the included number. Now when we have 5 as the included number, these are the possible combinations which have 8, 16, 26, 17, 27, 35 as the sum. However, if we are not including 5, that means I am either taking 1, 2, 10, 1, 2, 20, 2, 10, 20 and so on. So these combinations would be 13, 23, 31 and 32. Now, when I add these digits, that means when I add 1 and 3, my number is 4, 2 and 3 it is 5, 1 and 3 it's 4 and 3 and 2. That's 32. I add each digit. So 3 and 2 is 5. Understand this carefully. When there is no number 5 in it, then all these digits which I am taking are less than 5. So only when the number 5 is included, I would have the sum of the digits which would be greater than 5. So be it 8, 16, 26, 17, 27 or 35, all of them would have the sum which is greater than 5. So when I say the sum of digits of M is greater than 5, I receive a coin of 5 denomination. That's true. I can definitely say that. Okay, now the question says I can select the option if the question can be answered by using one of the statements alone but cannot be answered using other. So if I am only saying that M is not prime, I cannot answer, but if I say 2, I can definitely answer this question. So if I say M alone is sufficient, it's not, because I have 32 here, because this does not include 5 but the number is not prime, it's 32. So alone with statement 1 I cannot make it possible, but with statement 2 I can definitely make it possible. An interesting question it was. The next is for 2 distinct real numbers X and Y, which of them is bigger? Now this is interesting. I'll put examples and tell you. Okay, so let's take the first statement is X square less than Y less than 1. I take X is equal to 0.5, okay, and then Y is equal to 0.3. Now what I do is X square. So X square is 0.25 less than 0.3 less than 1. That means in this case I am taking X greater than Y because my X value is 0.5. But I take another example. I take the value of X as minus 0.1. I take the value of Y as 0.1. Now again I solve it. In this case again the same equation satisfy. But what would happen? In this case my Y is greater than X. So I cannot say that this statement alone satisfies which of them is bigger. It cannot. Okay. Let me do it with the other question, other statement, that is Y less than root of X less than 1. Now here again I take example of X as 0.25. Okay, and Y as 0.2. So in this case it would be 0.5 and 0.2. So it would satisfy. But here I have X greater than Y. Okay, now I take another case where I take the value of X as 0.25 but Y as 0.3. So the same case, but here my value of Y becomes greater than X. Again this equation satisfies, but my Y is greater than X because Y is 0.3 and X is 0.25. But ultimately when I write this equation would turn true because my 0.3 is less than 0.5 is less than 0.1 in this equation as well. But here again Y is greater than X. So I have for both the statements explained you the case where we can have X greater than Y and Y greater than X. Both of them can be true. Since both of them can be true in both the statements, I cannot select any of these statements to answer the question. So D would be my right answer in this case. Coming on to the next question, further interesting question. Okay, now I have to take X and Y as integers, then I have to see whether x is even or not. Okay, understand this very carefully. Now in the first case, I take x is equal to 3, y is equal to 2. When I take x square, y square, right? So it becomes 36, 9 into 4, it is even. I take 1 plus x square plus y square, that is 1 plus 9 plus 4, that makes it 14, which is again even. So when I am taking x as odd, I cannot prove it, but let me take x as even. When I take x as even, let's say 4, and y remains 2 in this case, so it becomes 16 into 4, that is even 64, and then it would be 1 plus 16 plus 4, that is 21. Now this 21 is what? This 21 is odd. So then I can definitely prove that with statement 2, I can say it is correct. So this option can be answered using both the statements together, but cannot be answered by one statement together, because with both the statements I can use the values and I can say that this would turn true when if this would turn true, then x is even, right? So in this case I was able to prove that x is odd, and therefore I was able to establish that this would be the case where I would require both the statements together to answer this question. With one statement I cannot answer this question alone. The next question is again interesting. I have x and y, okay, and from that I take a set t. Now understand this carefully. X is a collection of only odd numbers, y is a collection of only even numbers. The t is a set of numbers which is either from x or from y. Now the sum of two numbers belonging to 2 is even. If both the numbers are odd, my number is even. If both the numbers are even, my number is even. Okay, so I cannot say this belongs only to y. It cannot be possible with this statement. Now in this case, if p is even, p minus 1 would be odd, and if p is odd, p minus 1 would be even. So again, with just this simple statement I cannot prove it. Rather, if I take both the statements together, then also I cannot prove it. The logic remains the same. So I cannot conclude that t belongs only from y, because y is a set of only even numbers. So that's the main thing that you have to identify. If I take from all the odd numbers, again it remains even, because the sum of that would be even, and again from the even the sum would remain even. So this cannot be possible, and the same logic applies here, because if I am picking p which is even, p minus 1 would be odd, and vice versa. So none of these statements can actually explain the question here. Now the next question here is, if x, y, z are integer and each is greater than 1, then is x a prime number? How can I prove it? So let's say in the very first statement 116, I take 2 square into 29. Okay, 2 square into 29. Now y is greater than 1. Okay, this says that each is greater than 1. Y is greater than 1, and it must be a square factor of 116. So the only possible factors of that should be y is equal to 2 and x is equal to 29, right? So it can be answered with just this statement. Now let me take another statement into consideration. xz is equal to 261. So that would be 3 square, that is 9 into 29. Now here x can be 3 or x can be 29. Okay, both of which are prime, but it can be also 9. I can have also 9 in this case, but this 9 is not a prime number. So in this case I cannot prove it. So with one statement alone I can definitely be able to prove it, but 2 alone is not sufficient to prove it. I hope this was clear. Coming on to the next question. Now this is a question based on passage, 2 questions on it. So Kalagram is a cultural village which has been set up in the Mahakumbh Mela, which talks about India's diversity, 7 meticulous crafts which are known as Sanskriti Ang, and these have thematic zones. For example, the temples from Dakshineshwar Kali to Brahma Mandir, and then the paintings of Bengal Patchitra, Assam's bamboo craft, Tamil Nadu's Thanjavur painting, Madhya Pradesh tribal sculptures. Now they have all explained the living galleries and the master artisans behind them. Now the question says, which of the conclusions are valid? 7 Sanskriti Angan represent the different regions of India and have been showcased in Kalagram. That is perfectly correct. It is valid. The regional artistry was recognized via inspiration drawn from iconic temples. It's not correct, because it's not just the temple. They have the different forms through which it was recognized. So you have the various forms of artistries which was recognized by various other methods as well. The next is India's ancient history has been crafted by the contemporary craftsmen of 230 artisans created to behold. Now this is again valid, because this is directly mentioned in this statement. Art forms from all religion have been showcased. Now this is a very broad statement. It's not all religion, but we could say most of the religion. So we have used the word diverse regions here. So 4 is not an accurate answer. 1 and 3 are the correct ones. Now the next is, based on the same passage, which of the following statement is not true? Paintings from 4 states are mentioned. That is not correct. Paintings are mentioned only from Bengal, Pathchitra, and Thanjavur, Tamil Nadu. The rest are art and craft. So bamboo, it is a craft. Madhya Pradesh tribal sculpture, again a sculpture, so it's not a painting. So first itself is incorrect. We need not to move forward. It's done. The next question is a very simple question. You have to simply do the maths here. Now here P is equal to R and Q is equal to S. Now P is equal to R and Q is equal to S. So I have P plus 2Q plus D is equal to 15, and here I can say P is equal to R. Okay, so P is equal to R. That means this is 2P plus Q plus B is equal to 17. Then I have A plus C is equal to 6, and A plus B plus C plus D is equal to 17. Now since A plus C is equal to 17, I can say B plus D is what? 17 minus 6, so it's 11. Now I have B plus D also, and I have 2P plus 2Q and 2P plus Q here, right? So if I add these two statements, this would be 3P plus 3Q plus B plus D is equal to 15 plus 17, which makes it 132, right? So it would be 3P plus 3Q plus B plus D, I already know is 11. So 3P plus 3Q is equal to 32 minus 11. Okay, so that makes it 21, and P plus Q would be 21 by 3, that is 7. Now, which of the following is correct? So P plus Q is 7, which is more than A plus C. A plus C was 6. That's correct. So B is correct. I hope that was clear. The next question is, we have the set of words Q. Now from this Q, I have to always keep Q and U together. I can keep E, U and E separately, but E is repeated twice, right? So there are 4 different numbers and 1 repeated twice. So what could be the form of combinations? It would be 4 factorial by 2 factorial, that is 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Divided by 2 into 1, I solve it, I get 12. So 12 would be the correct answer here. The next question is a simple question on LCM. You have X, Y and Z jumping forward with 4, 6 and 5. So when I take LCM of 4, 6 and 5, I get what? I get 60. Now the question says at 8 am they were at 199 mark. Okay, now how many times they would land on the same mark if they move from 195 to 1000? So moving till 1000, so 199, I'll keep on adding 60, 60, 60, 60 and see how many combinations are there. So 199, 256, 319 and so on. I move till 979. So there are 14 different common marks on which they would all be on the same spot. So that is again a simple question, every time asked a similar question in CSET. So if you are well idea with this, you can easily solve it. The next question is, sports is not just about winning medals or getting job through a sport quota. It is focusing on the issues of daily life, depression, anxiety. So parents often say that their children are inactive, they do not go out of their home. So sports can help them because it builds team management, fitness, coordination and develops a healthier life. Now, which of these are valid conclusions? So sport is more than just a game, it is a way of life. That is the first statement. Now this is a valid statement definitely, because it talks about, as we have seen, it maintains the fitness, teamwork, coordination. Sports can help mitigate the problem of seclusion among young individuals. That's again a correct statement that has been mentioned. So 1 and 2 are the valid statement. Now learning laurels in sports can help secure job on the quota. That's again mentioned here. So 3 is again correct. Standard corporate sector skills cannot be learned through sport. That is nowhere mentioned, because this talks about time management, fitness and teamwork. So definitely it would benefit there. So this cannot be applied. So 1, 2 and 3 would be the correct options here. The next is based on the same statement, same passage, which of the following are correct? Parents are not encouraging enough when it comes children to playing sports. That is not correct, because this simply says that parents often say that the children are inactive and do not leave their house. It does not mean that parents don't want them to play. The next is participation in the sports activity can help develop life skills. Correct. The fitness, teamwork, coordination as mentioned. Sports as a way of life can help evolve that very nature in the society. That's again correct, because that has been directly mentioned. It helps in building a healthier, happier society. So 2 and 3 are correct. So 2 and 3 are the correct options here. The next is an interesting problem. Now the toy T jumps forward, backward, right? So each forward jump, it moves 5 forward and then backward 2. So minus 2 backward, right? And that forward, backward, right? So 2 backward. Now this is how much exactly forward? It is 15 forward. So that is the net distance. But again, it says that how many jumps are there? 31 jumps. So forward jump plus backward jump is 31. Now I have two equations, two variables. I can solve it, and then I have to find out the difference between the numbers of forward and backward jump. When I solve this, I get forward is equal to 11, backward is equal to 20. The absolute difference of that is 9. So how much is the difference between the number of forward and backward jumps? 11 forward, 20 backward, and total difference is 9. So the correct answer here is 9. This is a very interesting analytical problem on sitting arrangement. We had discussed it just before your examination. So if you had watched that video, you would definitely benefit. Now there are 8 persons sitting at an equal distance. Both is important to understand. P and Q are adjacent. P and R are adjacent to Q, right? So we have P and R adjacent to Q. Now the next is T and R are adjacent to S. So you already have R. You have T, they are adjacent to S. Now both U and V are adjacent to W. So I have U and W adjacent to V. Now this is what I have drawn. Now S and W are opposite. So S and W are opposite. Makes sense in the diagram as we have seen. Then it says while going clockwise in the direction from P, one meets R before T. So while moving from P towards T, I cross R in between. Okay. Then how many persons shall cross Q? How many persons shall cross Q while moving in the clockwise direction before meeting W? So before meeting W, how many persons would cross Q? So R, S, T, U and V. So 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 5. So 5 people would cross. I hope that's simple. So it's moving clockwise from Q to W. How many people in between? As simple. The next question, this is a very interesting problem. There are two pieces of rectangular blocks which are painted blue. The condition is that they should touch two sides. So when they should touch two sides of the corner, they should touch two sides. That means they should always be on the corner, right? Now I'll take the bigger piece of 8-inch dimension. Since the table is of 6 by 10 dimension, I take 8 piece dimension. So this 8 piece would either touch this corner, this corner, this corner or this corner. But with every combination, I can have the other blue piece in the same direction or in the opposite direction. Okay, so there are 4 combinations that can be done in this way, and then since there are 4 combinations that can be done, the correct answer would be 4. An interesting question, really interesting. The next is, How is deflation done? So most countries do the method what is called as double deflation. Input and output prices are deflated separately. Now, consider if a nation manufactures oil for use in production. If the oil price fall, the output does not. What would happen? The quantity would remain the same, the real value added would not change. But if the same deflators are used for the input and output as in India, it would look as if the manufacturer has become more productive. Now this, based on this, what we can understand, the statement 1 which is given here actually clearly explains it, because the real value should not change in the instance of the static output cost and unchanged quantities falling against oil price, because it says that if the oil price fall and the output does not, that means the quantity remains the same and then the real value should not be changed. So this statement is correct. Now the second statement, deflators are used by all economies, is incorrect. It says that it is used by most countries. So second is incorrect, one is correct. So one only would be the correct option. Excuse me. The next one here, the same question. Assumption that deflation strategies can be used to make manufacturers appear that they are doing better than they are actually. It shows clearly in the last line that they are appearing to be more productive. So this statement is a valid assumption. The next says when input output prices both deflate against a single input price, it is called as double deflation. That's incorrect, because they are deflated against separately, not as a single unit price. So D2 is incorrect. 1 is the only valid option. So 1 only would be the correct option here. The next question. This is a simple series of A, B, B, A, B, repeating A, B, B, A, B and so on. Now the question asks about the 7th and the 8th positions from the left. So that is B, B in the sequence. So that's it. As simple as that, a direct question. The next is an interesting problem. I have 10 raised to m multiplied by 1000 into n. So 10 raised to m into 10 raised to 3 into n, that is 10 raised to m plus 3 into n. Okay, now n is not divisible by 10. What is the value of m? I have to calculate. Now I'll take the other side. 75 raised to 25 is 3 into 5. 5 square raised to 25. Okay, I expand it. It is 3 raised to 25 into 5 raised to 50. Then I have 25 raised to 32, that is 5 raised to 2 into 32, that is 5 raised to 64. The next case is 32 raised to 75, that is 2 raised to 5 into 75, that is 2 raised to 375. Now these are all the combinations that I have. 2 raised to 375 plus 3 raised to 25 plus 5 raised to, here I had 50 and here I have 64. So 50 plus 64, that is 114. So that is 5 raised to 114. Now the maximum power of 10 can be what? So I have 3 into 2, that's again 5. I solve this, I get 10 raised to 114. Now since I have 10 raised to 114 as the maximum power, this 114 would be m plus 3 is equal to 114. So m is equal to 111. So 111 would be my correct answer here. I hope this was clear. An interesting question, a little lengthy. The next question is the relative speed of the train. So when they are moving in the same direction, we subtract. So speed of train is 100 kilometers per hour, person 4 kilometers per hour. So 100 minus 4, 96 kilometers per hour. I change it into meter per second, and then this is the speed. So distance by time is equal to speed, and I need to calculate what in this case? I need to calculate the distance. So that is the speed into time. So I have the speed which is in meter per second. I multiply it with the time which is 15 seconds, right? So either I change the second into kilometers, but this value is finally in seconds. So I have to take this kilometer per hour into meter per second. Okay, so when I take 96 into meter per second, it becomes 80 by 3. Now 80 by 3 into 15, that is 400. Now the length of the train is 400. So I know the length is 400. Now apply the same length in the second case. So in the second case, my time is equal to distance by speed. My distance is 400 and my time is 104 into 5 by 18, because I have added the two times. It is in the opposite direction, so 100 plus 4, so it's 104. Now 104 is in kilometer per hour. I change it to meter per second, so it's into 5 by 18. I solve this, I get somewhere around 13.85. So 13.85 is my correct answer. So with this, we are done with the set of the first 20 questions for your CSET prelims. We'll be continuing our session further. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining.